Welcome to this 3-part tutorial series where I'll be showing you how to build a SaaS application in Django. Now the idea here is that we'll give you a really solid template and foundation so that you can go and extend this project and build something really cool and meaningful. That means that we're going to handle all of the deployment steps, all of the integrations, all of the back-end coding, all of the database models, and do all of these really annoying and tedious steps that can take you a lot of time to figure out. That's all going to be handled for you in this video. You're going to learn step by step how you set everything up, how you have the various different integrations, how you handle something like payment processing, and then you'll have a really great project that, again, you can go extend and build off of. And we'll even set all of this up with continuous deployment using a GitLab server so that you can do all of the changes from your local machine. And once you do the deployment one time, it'll just automatically happen every single time you make a qualifying change. This is a great tutorial series. I've spent a lot of time building it. You're going to get a ton of value from this, I promise, and all of the code will be available from the link in the description in case you're getting lost or you just want to copy some of the various steps. Now, just before we dive into the content, I'll mention that my name is Tim. I'm a developer advocate for this channel, and I run the YouTube channel Tech with Tim, which has hundreds of other programming tutorials. You can check that out from the link in the description. With that said, let's go ahead and get started and build this Django SaaS application. Now, I'll begin with a quick demo of what it is we're going to be building. Keep in mind that this is meant to act as a boilerplate or kind of a template that you can extend and add to. So we're going to set up all of the core functionality. I'm going to show you exactly how you can do a lot of the things you'll probably have questions about, but then it will be on you to extend this project and make it a legit SaaS application. So you can see that I'm on actually a tunneled host here. What I'm using is something known as ngrok. What this allows me to do is have a public URL connected to my local host. That way I can actually use some webhooks and some callbacks from the Stripe API. You'll see what I mean in one second, but what we'll do to begin here is just go ahead and click on register. So what we'll set up in this project is registration, login, logout for getting your password, all of the stuff that you would want. Obviously you can customize these pages. I've just used the default ones from Django for right now. So let's make a new user and we'll make this Tech with Tim. For the email, just go with a kind of fake email here, tim@gmail.com. We'll go with a password and another password here and click on register. As soon as we register, it's going to redirect us to this course page. Now, what we're building is kind of a course platform. The reason for this is I'm going to show you how we can unlock and gate different access to content and then let people actually purchase it using Stripe. I figured that's something most of you would want to do. Again, you can adapt this to whatever you want. Anyways, you can see here that if I click on one of the locked courses, it actually brings me to a Stripe checkout page that is running in test mode currently where I can actually purchase the course. So let's go ahead and try to purchase this. Now with Stripe, there's kind of fake cards that you can use while you're testing out. So obviously you don't have to pay for this for the tutorial. You just got to fill in all of this stuff here. It doesn't actually matter what you put so long as you put this as the card number like that. Click on pay. We'll give this a second here. And then we should see when we're redirected here, we've now unlocked this course, but the other one is still locked. So now I can click into the course here and I can see whatever content is associated with it. Now, obviously, if we click on this one, same thing, we need to buy this. If we go back, it's not going to be unlocked. Now, if we log out, it's going to redirect us back to the login page. Of course, we can log in. So Tech with Tim, we'll use my password here, and then we're good. Now, we can also click on Forgot Password. When we do that, it brings us to this page. You can customize this page if you want. I just haven't at this point. We could enter our email address, and then we'd actually be sent a link where we'd be able to reset our password. Okay, so that is it for the demo. I know it seems relatively simple, but there is a lot of stuff going on here. And once you have this application built and set up, you can do a lot of cool stuff. Now, I will quickly mention that this video is not designed for absolute beginners. I am expecting or kind of anticipating you have experience with Python, HTML, and CSS, and also with Django. All right, so the first thing we're actually going to do here to get started is just spin up the various servers that we're going to be using throughout this tutorial so that they're ready once we actually need to use them. Now, for all of the servers in this video, we're going to be using Linode/Akamai. If you don't already have an account, you can get a free 60-day $100 credit by clicking the link in the description, which will be more than enough for following along with this tutorial. All right, so once you've signed into your Linode account, we'll now go ahead and create the different different services that we need. Now, the first thing we're going to need is a place to host our Django website, because at the end of this, I'm going to show you how we can host it and how we can set up automated deployments. So every time we make a push to a GitHub, or in our case, it's going to be a GitLab repository, we can actually automatically update the website. So first thing is going to be that. Second thing is going to be a server, which is going to run GitLab. Now, GitLab is going to be essentially a self-hosted Git repository for us, which allows us to do some more complex DevOps operations. Lastly, we're going to spin up a database cluster, and we're going to use Postgres for the backend database, which will be in the cloud. So we need the main host, we need the GitLab server, and then we need our database, obviously, all of which you can get with Linode/Akamai. So we're going to go to create here. We're going to go to Linode. For the OS here, I'm going to go with the latest version of Ubuntu. For the region, I'll go with Toronto because that's closest to me. And we don't need anything crazy, so I'll go to shared CPU, and I'll actually go with a Linode 2 GB here. Okay, for the name, I'm going to go with Django-host. Then we need to enter a root password. Okay, so let me go ahead and enter that, make sure we remember what the password is. And then we're going to go down here and click on Create Linode. Okay, so that's going to be provisioning now. Next thing we'll do is spin up the GitLab server. So we're going to go create Linode again. This time we're going to go to Marketplace, and we're actually going to search for GitLab because there is a one-click install, which means we don't actually have to do anything here to set up GitLab. So we're going to select GitLab here from the Marketplace, go down. We don't actually need to fill in any of the advanced options. We just need to put in an email. So I'm going to blur this out. What I will put in my email here. We're going to go to image. We'll just select the Ubuntu image here. Same thing for region, choose whatever is closest to you. And then I'm going to recommend we go with a dedicated server here for GitLab, just because GitLab is a little bit heavy to run. You probably don't quite need this, but I'm just going to go with this one for now. We'll leave this GitLab CA Central. Same thing, make sure you remember the root password because we are going to need that. Okay, go ahead and press on Create Linode. We are now provisioning that. Lastly, we're going to go to databases here. We're going to go to create database cluster. And for the cluster label, I'm going to call this Django database. For the engine, we're going to go with the latest version of Postgres. For the region, same thing, whatever's closest to you. And then we will go with whatever we want here. I actually am fine with a shared CPU. I don't need that much storage for this database, so a nanode 1 GB will be fine. Now, it is recommended that you go with multiple nodes. Since this is just a tutorial, I'm just going to go with one node. And keep in mind, when we start using this, you'll actually need to whitelist the IP address of the server that's deployed that will be accessing this and of your local host machine during development. Anyways, we're going to create this and we'll just kind of let that run. It can take maybe 15 to 20 minutes to provision the cluster just because it has to do a bunch of configuration. Okay, you can see we actually have Django host running, GitLab is now running, and then the database will take a little bit. So we'll leave this tab open on the side, and now we'll hop into VS Code and start doing the next steps that we need. Okay, so we've spun up our servers. Now we need to create our Django project. So what I've done is opened a folder in Visual Studio Code. You can do this wherever you want. And the first thing we're going to do is install all of the required modules from Python. So we're actually going to create a requirements.txt file here. And inside of here, I'm just going to put all the requirements we need so that we remember them when we go to install these on our server. So the first one we need is Django. The next one we need is Stripe. We are then going to use this one here. I'm just going to copy it in because I'm not really great at spelling it. It is the kind of sci-copg binary. This is for using Postgres from Django. And then lastly, we're going to have the Django corsheaders. Now we need this because Stripe is going to be interacting with our Django website. And since we have cross-origin kind of requests coming in, we're going to need to set up some cors-related stuff, which I'll show you in a second. So now that we have that, we can actually just install all of the modules directly from the requirements.txt file. To do that, we'll be in the directory where requirements.txt is and type pip install -r and then requirements.txt. Now it's going to take a second, and that will install all of the different modules for us. If for some reason that doesn't work, you can try pip3 install. And if that doesn't work, you can try python-m pip install or python3-m pip install. One of those should work for you. If not, then you're going to have to fix your pip installation. Okay, now that we have those installed, we're going to create a new Django project. Now to do that, we're going to type Django-admin start project, and then we're going to give this a name. Now, in my case, I'm going to call it the course platform, but if you want to do something different, then obviously you can change the name. Okay, let's hit enter here. It's going to create that for us. So now we're going to CD into the course platform. And actually, I'm going to take my requirements. Actually, do I want to do that? Yeah, I'm going to take my requirements.txt, and I'm going to put it inside of the course platform because it's going to be kind of a part of that project. Okay, let's clear the screen. We are now inside of course platform. Now what we're going to do is create some different Django applications, which will be responsible for kind of dividing or delegating the different tasks. Now in this app, the main thing we'll need is user authentication. So we're going to have one app that will just handle the user auth. We're going to have another app that will handle the payments, so all of the Stripe related stuff. And then the last app will handle all of the content or our different courses. So what we'll do is type Python manage.py start app. Then the first app that we're going to have here is going to be the user app. So we'll go ahead and make that one. The next one we need is the payment app. And then the last one we need, I'm going to call course, but you can call this whatever you want, okay? Obviously, you're going to have to adjust if you change the names, so I recommend you keep them the same, but you get the idea. These are the three main applications that we need. Okay, let's clear the screen here. So notice once we created those, we got 3 subdirectories here inside of the course platform. Now an app is connected to the main Django project, but it's responsible for its own kind of set of responsibilities. I know that was a bad way to describe it, but in the payment app, we just do payments. In the user app, we handle all the user related stuff like signing in, signing out. And in the course app, we handle all of the course related stuff and all of the content for our courses. Okay. So now that we've made these 3 apps, we actually need to link them to the main Django project, which is inside of the subdirectory with the same name as the project, course platform. So we're going to go to settings.py here. Let me move this down. And you're going to see we have a bunch of stuff here. Now what we're going to do is go to installed apps. And inside of installed apps, we're going to add the name of all of the applications that we made. So that's going to be payment, user, and lastly, course. That's actually going to link them to the project and allow us to use them, root URLs, all that kind of stuff. Now, while we're here, we're also going to set up cores. This is because we're going to need it later on. And there's a lot of things we're going to have to kind of add in settings. So we might as well just do this right now. So inside of installed apps, we're actually going to add the app cores headers like this. If you're not familiar with cores, this is something that is going to allow us to have cross-origin requests, which means the Stripe API can actually interact with our Django application. That's why we need to set this up. Usually that's blocked. The reason that would be blocked is because we don't want to have other websites or other domains interacting with our backend or our API. But in this case, we're going to specifically allow the Stripe one, and you'll see exactly how that works. Okay, so we have cores headers. Next thing we're going to need to do here is go into middleware and add the cores middleware. So we're going to say cores headers like that, dot middleware, and then dot cores middleware like that. Lastly, we're just going to make a few variables here. The first variable we need is going to be cores underscore allow underscore all underscore origins is equal to true. Okay, and then we're going to say CRSF underscore trusted underscore origins is equal to, and then this is going to be an empty list that we're going to fill in later on. And this is actually CSRF. This is something related to forms, which we're going to see in a minute. Now that we have that, what we're going to do is start hooking up our different URLs. Now, in case you're unfamiliar with this in Django, we have kind of a base URL, which starts right here from this file, and then we can pass URLs or forward them into our different applications. So I'm going to get rid of all of this stuff because we don't really need that here. But the idea is that user, payment, and course are all going to have their own unique set of URLs, but we need to link kind of a partial URL to those URLs. Now, what we'll do for now inside of URLs is the following. We will say path like this. And for the path, we're going to say user slash, and then this is going to be include, which is a function that we need to import from up here. And we're going to include the URLs from user.urls. Okay. Now we're going to copy this exact same thing and paste this down here. But now we're going to change this to be payment, and then this is going to be payment.urls. And then this is going to be course, and this will be course.urls. So what we're essentially doing here is saying whenever we have the URL that starts with user slash, we're going to forward whatever the remaining part of that URL is to the user.urls, where it will then be routed and handled over there. So to show you an example of that, if we go to user, we're going to make a new file here called urls.py. Inside of this file, we're now going to write how we want to handle the URLs that are forwarded to us from this base URL. So for now, we're going to say from Django.urls import path, and we're just going to say URL patterns here is equal to an empty list, and then we're going to fill this in 1 second. Now we're actually going to copy that, and that's because we need a URLs file in every single one of our apps. So we're going to go to payment now and make urls.py and paste that in, and then we're going to go to course here and go to urls.py, and we're going to paste this in. Now we'll fill these in again in a second when we actually have some routes that we want to go to, but for now we've just kind of linked all of these apps that we have now to the main application so they can start handling their own routes. Again, whenever you go to payment, we'll then be handling it over in payments. When you go to course, we'll be handling it over in course. For now, we're going to focus on the user route because we want to do all of the registration and user authentication. Once we have that, then we can do the more interesting stuff like the Stripe integration and all of the courses and models and all that kind of stuff. All right, so what we want to do now is we want to begin by making a base HTML template, which is going to act as the theme for our website. And then we'll start building all of the routes related to user authentication. So what we need is this base template. If you're unfamiliar with Django, we have something called template inheritance, which means we can create one template that has things like a navbar, a sign-in button, whatever it is that we're going to display. And then we can inherit that template and use it and kind of customize it anywhere in the website. So we always start with the base and then we move on to the rest of the templates. So we're going to go inside of our user app here because this will be where we're working mostly in this video. And we're going to make a folder called templates. Now make sure you name it exactly templates, otherwise it won't work. We're then going to have a file called base.html. Now what we'll do is initialize an HTML template, and we are going to add Bootstrap to this so we can very easily style our website. Obviously you can adjust this if you want. We'll make a basic navbar, and then that will be the base template. Okay, so if I type HTML:5 here, it actually gives me a shortcut that just initializes an HTML document. I'm going to go to the title here, and I'm just going to call this my course SaaS like that. And we are going to add Bootstrap to this. So to add Bootstrap, we're just going to open up a new tab in our browser. We're going to type Bootstrap like that. You can see I was looking up some stuff recently. We're going to go over here, and we're going to get started. So read the installation documentation. Okay, and we're going to use our CDNs to do this. So what I will do is copy this link tag here directly from the Bootstrap website. We're going to put that link inside of the head here. That's going to give us our style sheet. We're now going to go back here, and we are going to copy the script tag. Okay, and we're going to put that at the bottom of our body. Okay, so now we have all of the JavaScript for the animations and stuff. And actually, I think that's all we need. I don't know if we need these other script tags or not. I guess we'll see as we go through. But for now, I'm going to close that. And I think we actually have Bootstrap added. Now, what we'll do is just initialize a simple navbar here inside of our body using Bootstrap. So we're going to create a nav item here. For nav, we're going to have a class. We're going to use our Bootstrap classes. So we're going to say navbar, navbar-expand-large. Navbar-light. If you want it to be dark, you could change it to dark. We're going to say bg light like that. And that's actually all we need for the classes. Now inside of the navbar, we're going to add a few things. So first, we're going to have an a tag here. We're going to have class, if we do this correctly, is equal to navbar-brand. And then we're going to have href equal to, for right now, I'm just going to make it pound, but we could change that to a legitimate link later on. And we're going to have the name of our website be course platform. This will appear in the top left-hand corner of the navbar. Next, we're going to have a button. Now, this button is actually going to be responsible for toggling the navbar on smaller screens. So it'll give us that kind of hamburger menu on a small screen. We're going to say class is equal to navbar toggler. We're going to say the type is equal to a button. We're going to say the data dash toggle like that is equal to collapse, and then the data target is equal to pound navbar and then nav. Okay, that's actually all we need there for the button. Inside of the button, we're just going to put what we want to display. So we're going to say span, and then the class is going to be a navbar dash, and then this is going to be toggler dash icon. So this will be that kind of hamburger menu that will be displayed inside of the button. And when we press this, it's going to toggle whatever has the ID of navbar nav, which we're going to build now. So now we're going to make a div, which will be the main navbar content. We're going to say class is equal to collapse, because this is collapsible, and then navbar dash collapse, like that. Now we need to give this the ID. The ID is going to be navbar nav, like that, right? Okay, inside of here, we're going to make an unordered list for the elements in our navbar. So we're going to have a class here, which is equal to navbar dash nav. And then this is going to be ML auto, which stands for margin left automatic. We now are going to put a little bit of dynamic content here using the Django templating engine. So if you're unfamiliar with this, when you write in kind of HTML with Django, you can use something called Django, which is a templating engine, which allows you to actually write some basic Python code and kind of inject variables and dynamic data inside of your HTML. So you can avoid using something like React or Ajax or a lot of JavaScript, sorry. So first, we're going to check if the user is authenticated, which means if they're signed in. The reason for that is if they're signed in, I'm going to show them a logout button. If they aren't signed in, I'm going to show them the register button or the login button, or both of them, I guess. So I'm going to say if, and then user.is_authenticated. I spelt that so horribly wrong. Let's see here. Okay, I think that's right. Now we're going to do a %% here, and we're going to put in else, and then we're going to do another %%, and we're going to say end if. Now this is how you create a block in Django. So here we do curly brace %, and now we're writing if. We have some condition here. So if the user is authenticated, then we have an else. So anything in between here will only happen if this condition is true. Anything in between the else and the end if will happen if this is false. And then we need to denote that we are ending the if statement, okay? So that is how you write an if statement here in Django. Now, if we are authenticated, then we'll just show the logout button. So we're going to say list item class is equal to nav dash item. And then we're just going to put a hyperlink here. So we're going to say A, let's end that. For A, we're going to say class is equal to the nav dash link. And for the href, this is actually going to be a dynamic URL. So we're going to say %% because we're injecting a variable here. And this is going to be URL. And make sure you do single quotes in here, not double quotes. And this is going to be logout. And then this is going to say logout here. Now, the way this works is we're going to look for the URL corresponding with the name of the root logout. And then we're going to go to that logout URL if we press this button. Okay, let's copy that. And let's go here inside of the else. Oops, that's not what I meant to copy. So now if you are not signed in, we're actually going to show you two nav items. The first one is going to be sign in. And the second one is going to be register. Now we just need to change what these go to. So I believe this will just be the login route. And then this will be the register route. Okay, so that's it for our navbar. Lastly, we're going to go here after our nav, but before our script. And we're going to create a div, which will be the main content of our website. So we're going to say class is equal to container, and then MT4, which stands for margin top 4 units. We're then going to make a block. So we're going to say %%, and then block content, and then %, and end block. Now this block can be overridden by anything that inherits this, template. That allows us to actually put anything we want inside of here and maintain this whole template and theme of the website. Great, so that is our base template. Now, if for some reason this isn't working for you, all of the code will be available from GitHub from the link in the description, so feel free to go over there and copy it. Let's continue. So we have our base template now. What we need to do is start setting up some routes for our website and for logging in, logging out, etc. Now, fortunately for us, Django actually handles all of the user auth for us. We just need to write a few things and kind of give it a few hooks and some information that it's expecting. So we actually need to go inside of templates here, and we need to make a directory called registration. Now, my spelling is quite bad, as you guys can see here. Registration, I think that's correct for the spelling. It needs to be spelled exactly correct, so make sure you spell it right. Inside of registration, we're going to make two routes, register.html, and sorry, not routes, HTML files, login.html. Now, login.html is going to be looked for by Django. So what it's actually going to do once we hook up the URLs, which I'll show you in a second, is look for the specific template, and then it's going to render that for the login page. That means that we can actually customize what the login page looks like. In fact, we can customize all of the authentication routes for Django, but in our case, we're just going to customize login and register. And then if you really wanted to go further, you could customize like the password reset form, password reset complete. Like there's all these different kind of HTML templates you can write that Django will look for inside of this folder. If you're unfamiliar with this, don't worry, but you'll see what I mean when we start setting up all of the auth with Django, which is mostly done for us. Okay, so let's begin with login. So we're going to start by extending the base template. So we're going to say extends, and then I'm just going to do single quotes here, base.html, which is in that kind of root template folder. Now what we'll do is specify that we're going to override the block content. Okay, so we just rewrite the block, and then anything we put inside of here is going to appear right here, okay, inside of this div where the content block exists. Okay, so inside of content, we just need to create a little form to allow people to log in. So we're going to say div class is equal to row, and then this is going to be justify dash content dash center. Okay, inside of here, we're going to create another div. Okay, slash div. For this, we're going to say class is equal to a column MD6. And then inside of here, we're going to have H2. We're going to say login, because that's what this form is, slash H2. If we did the tag correctly, we're now going to make a form. Okay, so slash form. For the form method, this is going to be a post request, because when we submit the form, we're going to post the data to our Django backend. Now, inside of the form, we need to write this CSRF_token. It's a little bit of a security measure in Django. I won't get into all of the details for it, but this essentially ensures that the form that you're submitting is valid to the backend. Again, there's a lot more details there, but just make sure you have this, otherwise it's not going to work. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to take a variable form, and we're going to say as_p, which stands for as paragraph. What this is going to do is take a variable that we'll pass to this template, and it will automatically render the form for us so that we don't need to write all of the individual pieces of data. Next, we're just going to put a button here, and we're going to have the button, if we could do this correctly, we're going to say type is equal to submit, and we're going to say class is equal to button, button dash, and then primary like that, which is going to give us a blue button. And then we're going to make this here say login. So these are Bootstrap classes that we're using. Okay, so now we have the form. Now what we're going to do beneath this is just add a few separate things that we want. For example, if you don't have an account, we want to show you a register link that you can click on to register. And if you forgot your password, we want to show you that link. So we're going to make a div here, and the class is going to be equal to MT3, standing for margin top 3. Inside of this div, we're going to handle the first thing, which is if you don't have an account, you need to register. So we're going to say don't have an account question mark. Then we're going to put an a tag. The href is going to be equal again to a dynamic link. So we're going to have %%. Inside of here, this is going to be URL. Make sure you use single quotes, not double quotes, because you're inside of double quotes. And this is going to be register. And we're going to say register here like that. Okay. Next, we're going to copy the same thing. And we're just going to change this to say forgot password. If we could type this correctly, forgot your password question mark, reset it here. And then for the URL, this is going to be password_resets. Okay. So I know we're kind of getting a bit ahead of ourselves because we haven't hooked up all of the different URLs yet, but I just want to do all of the HTML stuff because this is kind of the annoying part. And then once we have that, we can move on. So I'm actually going to copy this exact same thing, and I'm going to paste this into register. And we're just going to adjust it slightly because it's pretty much the same. So first of all, for the header, we're just going to call this register. We'll keep the same thing. We're going to have post request. We'll register the form SP, but this time, rather than log in, we are going to say register like that. Then what we're going to do is remove this. And rather than saying don't have an account, we're going to say already have an account question mark. And then we're going to change this to be login. So we're going to make that login, and then we'll make that login. Okay, so I think that is all we actually need here. And with that, we now can move on to actually registering or actually viewing some of the stuff on our website. Okay, so we've done the registration. We've done the templates. Now what I'm going to do is go into this views file, and I'm going to write the first view, which is for registration. So Django actually automatically handles all of the URLs for logging in, logging out, resetting your password. The only one it does not handle is registering for a new account. So we need to write that one ourselves, but then once we write that, we can hook up all of the other URLs and everything is finished. So what we're going to do for this here is we're going to go inside of views.py and we're going to make a register view. Now this is where we'll kind of be passed to when we are registering for a new account. So we're going to say define register. We're going to take in a variable request. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say if the request.method is equal to post in all capitals, then we're going to handle the submission of the form. So we're going to say pass here. We're going to put an else statement, and then we're going to return a render of the request. And what are we going to render? Well, we're going to render the registration template we just built, which is register.html. And then let me talk about what else we need to do here. So I know I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but there is a lot of stuff to write, so bear with me here. This register route has two types of requests. The first request is when we first hit it, and what we're looking for is to actually view the registration form, and then we're going to fill it in, and we're going to submit it. So when a GET request is passed, all we want to do is essentially return an empty registration form that you're going to fill in. However, if a POST request is passed, that means that we actually posted the form, so we were already on that page, and we're now hitting this backend endpoint again, but this time we're actually submitting the form data, which we then need to validate and then create a new account for the user, right? That's what we have to do. So how does that work? Well, the quick and easy way to do this in Django is to use something known as a user creation form. Now, this is something that is kind of already built for us that we can just modify slightly, which gives us methods like validating the form automatically, logging in the user, just passing everything that we need essentially. So it'll seem a bit vague, but what I'm going to do is go to user here, and I'm going to say forms.py, and we're going to make this registration form and then utilize it from that view. So we're going to go to the top here, and we're going to say from Django.contrib.auth.forms import, and this is the user creation form. Now notice there was a change form. There's a bunch of other forms. We're just going to do the user creation. We're then going to say from Django.contrib.auth.models, we're going to import the user model. This is the default model for all of the users in Django that we don't need to manually create ourselves. And then we're going to say from Django import forms. Okay, now we're going to create a class, and we're essentially going to inherit this user creation form and just modify it slightly to add an email field, because by default it doesn't have an email, and we do want to collect the user's email. So we're going to say class custom user creation form. We're going to inherit from the user creation form, and all we're going to do is add an additional field here, which will collect the user's email. So by default, we collect the username and then the password. Now we're going to change this so we're collecting username, email, and password, and you could add other fields here if you want, but I just want to do email for now. So I'm going to say email is equal to forms.email field. We're going to say required is equal to true, and then we can say the widget is equal to forms.email input like that, and then we're going to pass attributes equal to, and we're going to say class colon, and then this is going to be form-control. Now, I know this seems a bit weird, but what we're doing is essentially telling Django what widget or what HTML content we want to render when we render the email field. So that's what we're passing here with widget. Now, there's a bunch of other options you can do here. You'd have to look up the documentation. Not going to go through all of those. Lastly, we're going to do an inner class here. We're going to say class meta. We're going to say the model for this is equal to the user model. And we're going to say the fields are equal to the following, and we're going to put the order of fields. So the order of fields we want is username, email, password, and then I think this is going to be password 2. So let's do password 1 and password 2. So this is exactly what we need. copy this in. Again, you can get it from the link in the description. All of the code will be there. This is a custom user creation form that now we will use for our registration template. Let's go back to views now, and we're going to import that form. So to import that form, we're going to say from .forms import the custom user creation form. Now, what we're going to do is in the else here, we're going to say form is equal to custom user creation form. We're just going to initialize it. When we do that, we are essentially creating an empty version of this form, which now we can pass to the template, and then it will render the form for us. We can fill it in, and when we submit it, we will then have all of the data inside of the form, which we can validate. So whenever you're rendering a template in Django, you pass the request, you pass the location of the HTML file you want to render, and then you pass any dynamic data that you want to pass to the template. Now remember, in the template, we used a variable form. So we're going to put the key form here inside of a Python dictionary, and we're going to say colon, and then form like that, and that's going to be equal to this form. So if we go back here to templates, registration, and then register, notice how I'm saying form as P. That's because we are passing the form as the variable form to the registration template, okay? So that's what we need for that. However, now we need to handle inside of post. So now we're going to say form is equal to the custom user creation form, but this time we have some data in our request that we're going to initialize the form with. So we're going to say request.post in all capitals. That's going to take all of the data from the form that we filled in, pass it to our custom user creation form, and initialize all of those fields. So again, if we go back here to forms, it's essentially going to pass the username, email, password1, and password2 to the form for us. So now that we have all of that data, what we can do is see if it's valid. So we're going to say if form.is_valid like that. Then we're going to say user is equal to form.save. When we save the form, it's going to create a new user for us. Then what we can do is log in that user. Okay, so to log in the user, we need to import something here. We're going to say from django.contrib.auth import login. We're then going to go here to login. We're going to say login, request, and user. Now what this does is log in the user in the current browser session. That means now we don't need to constantly log in every time we try to access another page. It simply stores that this user is logged in the session data of the browser, and just like Facebook, Instagram, whatever, allows us to navigate the site as if we are authenticated. So again, we're getting all of the post data from the form. We're making sure it's valid. If it is, we're saving the form. By saving the form, that will automatically create a new user in the database for us automatically. We don't need to do anything else. We then log in the user. And then lastly, we just redirect the user to where we want them to go after they register. So I'm going to say return, redirect, and I'm going to redirect them to the course URL. So I'm actually going to say /course, because this will bring them to that kind of app, right? The course app, where then we will handle the navigation there, bring them to a home page, show them courses, etc. Now I just need to import redirect up here. And there you go. We have finished this register view. Okay, so that is quite a bit of the coding done. Now we need to hook up a lot of the URLs here for all of these different routes. So for registering, logging in, etc. And then I can actually show you running the code. I know we've done a lot of stuff without running the code so far. It's just because there's a lot of setup here for the Django authentication. Once it's done though, it's all finished and you don't really need to touch it. So we're going to go to urls.py. Now inside of urls.py, we're going to write quite a few URLs. So bear with me here as we do this. First, let's import a few things. So we're going to say from django.contrib.auth, we're going to import views as the authentication _views. We're then going to say from import views, and that's because we're going to use a bunch of pre-built views from Django, as well as the custom views that we built inside of here for registration. So the first thing we can do is write our registration path. So here we're going to say register /, and then this is going to be comma, views.register. So what we're doing is accessing the register function from the views file that we just wrote. So we're saying, hey, whenever you go to this register path, call this function, and that will handle what's going to be displayed to the screen. Now we're going to give this a name, and this is register. Okay, next we're going to handle the login and logout paths. So we're going to say path, and this is going to be login /, and this is going to be views, or sorry, not views, auth_views, because we're going to use the pre-built Django views. And this is going to be login view, and this is as_view, And what we're going to do here is actually specify the page that we want to be redirected to after we log in. So I'm going to say next underscore page is equal to, and then we're going to put the name of the page we want to redirect to. Now, eventually that's going to be course list. We haven't yet written this, but I'm just filling it in for right now. So what we're saying is, hey, we want to use a custom view from Django. So we're saying authViews.loginView as view, and then we can specify the page to be redirected to after we successfully log in. What this actually does is look for this login.html template, renders it for us, passes the correct form, does all of the authorization, authentication. It just handles it all for us, okay? So just make sure you have login.html inside of registration. And what that does, again, is it kind of gives you a custom login view. Okay, then we need name, and the name of this is login. It's important you have the name for all of these because that's how we reference them from our HTML. Okay, lastly, logout, and this is going to be authViews.logoutView.as_view like that. And then the name is just logout. We could specify a custom URL to redirect us to, and actually we will do that, but we're going to do that from settings. We're not going to do it from here. I know it seems a bit weird, but for the logout one, we have to specify a variable in the settings, which I'll show you in a second. Okay, so now we have register, login, logout. Now we want to add all of the password reset URLs, which we don't really need to do much for. We just need to write them in here. So we're going to say path, and we're going to say password_reset. Now this is going to be authentication views dot password reset view dot as_view, and then the name, of course, is going to be password_reset. Okay, now we're going to have very similar ones here for the next ones. So as well as password reset, we have a few variants of this. So password reset /done. This means you've actually finished the password reset, right? So there's going to be a separate view for that. So let's authViews.passwordResetDoneView.as_view. The name of this is going to be equal to password_reset_done with a lowercase d. Now let's zoom out so we can actually read all of these. So this one is actually going to be reset / and then we're going to take in a variable. This is a UIDB64. Make sure you name that exactly as it is. And then another variable. This is going to be token, and this is going to be the authViews dot password reset, and I believe this is going to be confirm. So password reset confirm view dot as_view, and the name is going to be equal to password_reset_confirm. Now, the way this kind of works is when you actually reset the password, you're going to be sent an email. The email is going to contain a link. That link is going to have a token. And what happens is when you click that link, it's going to bring you to this view right here, which will take in that token, which will allow you to actually reset your password. So that's why we have that here. Lastly, or not lastly, but next, we're going to have the reset /done, and this is going to be authViews dot. Now this one will actually be password reset complete view. I know they're pretty similar, and this is going to be as_view, and you guessed it, password_reset_complete like that. Okay, next we're going to have another one here, and this is going to be password_change because you might need to change your password, right? And this is going to be authViews dot password change view dot as_view name is equal to password_change, and then we're going to have path, and this is password_change /done. And also I just remembered I need to add my trailing slashes here just so that these don't break. Okay, so password reset done, trailing slash, and then authViews dot password change done view dot as_view name is equal to password change _done. Okay, that was a lot, but that is it. Those are all of the different views that we need. Now, finally, we can actually start testing some of this stuff. And there's a few last things, but that's going to complete most of the stuff in this video. Okay, so let's go now here, and let's type the following. We're going to say Python manage.py, and we're actually going to type make migrations. This is just to set up our database here. Okay, so no changes detected. That's fine. We're going to say Python manage.py migrate. This is usually just a good step to run initially. And what this actually does for us is kind of set up all of the different database tables that we need in our local database. So you should see now that we get a db.sqlite3 database. We're going to change this to use the one from linode/Akamai in just a second. But for now, we're going to use the local one just to test things out. Okay, so we make the migrations, we migrate. Anytime you add any models or you make any changes to the database, you're going to run those two commands. Now we're going to type Python manage.py run server. Now, what we're going to do is go to this URL, and you'll see that immediately it tells us that we don't have any page found. What we want to do to start is we just want to access the registration route. So we're going to go to /user/register. When we do that, it should bring us to this page right here. Now, notice that we didn't really write a lot of this stuff, right? This is coming from Django. We've just set it up so that it's kind of displayed the way we want it to be. Now, I'm noticing we do have a slight issue with the navbar, so I'm going to fix that in 1 second. But for now, you can see that we get this registration route. Now, let's just test the login route. So we can actually go here, and now we have the login route, and forgot your password. And actually, I think I have the wrong A tag here. So I'm going to have to fix that. Okay, let's just quickly have a look here because it looks like I messed something up in the base template related to my navbar, which is causing some issues. All right, so the issue here is that this whole div I put inside of my button, so I need to remove that from the button. And now that I do that, that should actually fix some of the issues we were having there. So let's go back and refresh. And now you can see that we get sign in and register. They're not going to the right side of the screen, which I wanted, so we might need another fix there, but at least you can see that we have these buttons. We also have an issue here in the login template. So let's go to login first and fix that. Looks like we didn't end our A tag, so we're just going to end the A tag there. Okay, so that should fix that. I think this is good if we end the A tag here as well, because we forgot to do that. And let's go back to base and just make sure we don't have any other issues. Sorry. All right, sorry for the delay there, guys, but I'm just realizing I'm having some issues with Bootstrap, actually. So I'm going to change the CDN to something I've used in a previous tutorial. Now, obviously, you can pause the video and just copy this in, or you can just grab this code from the link in the description. Now, this is an older version of Bootstrap, but this is one that I know actually works. So I'm just going to change all of the script tags here, as well as this link tag here with the kind of old ones, and I hope that's going to fix the issue for us because I was having some problems kind of, what do you call it here, interacting with buttons and some other data. So now actually if I refresh, you can see here we're actually getting the correct Bootstrap classes and everything is looking better. Okay, perfect. So my apologies about that, but now we should have everything fixed. We have register here, okay? We have login, we have the reset one, which brings us here. So now let's create a new account. So let's go with tim@gmail.com. Let's create a password and go ahead and register. And there we go. So it actually registered us and it redirected us to the course page. Now, where we actually want to go now is the login page. So we're going to go to /user/login. And what we'll do is log out first of all. Okay, so it brings us here. We'll change that route in 1 second. We'll go back to login. Okay, and now we're going to try to log in with that account. So I'm going to say Tim, okay, and log in. And you can see that it actually gave us an error here, and it says course list not found. Okay, so the reason we're getting that error is because we don't have the URL. But the point here is that logging in and registering, logging out, all of that is actually working completely fine. We just don't have all of the redirect URLs written, which is why we're kind of seeing some of the errors popping up. But we do have an account now, which is Tim. You guys can obviously make your own account. And we are able to sign into that. We were able to create it and we can log out. So the authentication mostly is working. Few last things we need to do here, and we'll set up some of those routes just to make sure everything is fully functioning and we can kind of navigate the website. What we're going to do now is we're going to go into settings. So we're going to go to course platform, settings.py, and we're going to write a few variables at the bottom of the screen here related to the redirects after logging in, logging out, etc. So first of all, we're going to say the login URL is equal to /user/login. Now, the reason that's the URL is because login is the URL from the user app, but to get to the user app, we have to go to user, right? So that's why that's the URL. We need to set that specifically. That means whenever we try to access a page that we're unauthorized to see, it will bring us to this login page. Okay, next, we're going to say the login redirect, if we can specify this here, underscore URL is equal to, and then we can set that to whatever we want. We'll do that in a second. And then lastly, the logout underscore redirect underscore URL, and I'm actually going to make that to the login URL. So when we log out, it's just going to bring us back to the login page. We'll set the login redirect URL later on, but I just wanted to put that there for now. Now, another thing we'll do here while we're in settings is we'll just set up something related to our email service. So as you can see here, when we kind of want to reset the password, we'll need to send an email to the user. Now, to send an email with Django, we actually need to set up an email server or some kind of service. Now, you could use your own custom kind of Gmail backend, or you can use something like SendGrid, Twilio, whatever it is. Now, I'm not going to run you through all of the steps here. For now, what I'm going to do is change the email backend to actually be kind of a test backend, which will display the email in our console just so we can see if it's working. Now, if you want to change the email backend to be something legitimate, like you would want to do in production, you're going to have to look up the various email backends that exist in Django and pick which one you want. Okay, so what do we want to do here? We're just going to set the email underscore backend here to be equal to django.core.mail.backends.console.email backend. Again, all that does is whenever it's going to send an email, so like resetting the password, it will just print that out in the console so that we can see it. So that's mostly what we need to do. Now, just because I want a little bit of redirection to work for us, I'm going to go into my course app here, and I'm just going to set those URLs that it was saying didn't exist. So for course, the URLs that we need are the following. We actually just need an empty URL. So this just means if we go to /course, this is what we're going to render. And we need to have a function that's going to render some template for us. So I'm going to go inside of views here, and I'm just going to make a very, very simple function that is going to render the base template. So what we can do here is say define course underscore list. Okay, this is going to take in a request. And for now, we're just going to return a render, and we're just going to render the base.html. Okay, which doesn't matter that it's not in the templates folder here. It will render it from user. That's fine. And we're actually going to decorate this with a @login underscore required, which we're going to import. So we're going to say from django.contrib.auth.decorators import the login underscore required. And what this does is ensure that we are authenticated before it allows us to actually access this route. If we try to access this route and we're not logged in, it's going to redirect us to the login page. Okay, so that is that one. And we're just going to copy this, and we're going to change this to say course underscore detail. We're going to write this one in a second. And same thing, we're just going to render the base.html. Okay, going back here, we're going to go back to URLs. We're now going to import those views that we just wrote. This is going to be from.views import views, or actually just from.import views. That works fine. So this is going to be views.course underscore list. And the name is going to be equal to course underscore list like that. And then we're going to go here and we're going to say path. And this is going to be an int, which is the course underscore ID. I'm going to put a slash here. And this is going to be views.course detail, and the name is going to be course underscore detail. Now, again, we're going to customize these later on, but I just want to set up the URL so that the redirection is working overall as we're signing in, signing out, etc. Okay, so I think that's it for now. Let's go back here. Our server should still be running. Let's make sure it is. Looks like it crashed because we made some change. So let's rerun the server there. Go here, refresh. Let's try to sign into our account, and notice it just brings me to this main page here at /course. If I log out, redirects me here. And if I try to go to /course and I'm not signed in, notice it redirects me to the login page with a query parameter that will bring me to the course page once I sign in. Back to registration, you can see this works. Login, we can reset the password with this. And in fact, I'll show you if I enter the email. So Tim gmail.com and press reset my password, redirects me to log in here, right? And you can see that it actually gives me the email that it sent in the console. So it says, thanks for using our site, blah, blah, blah. It actually just cut it off because of the way the console was printing out, but it kind of showed me what the email was that it was going to send. All right. So there you go. That is authentication. Now, what I want to do is set this website up so it starts using the database from Akamai/Linode. Then we're going to set up the GitLab server very quickly, push this to GitLab, and in the next video, we're going to handle all of that course content. Then in the final video, we're going to set that Stripe integration, and we're going to do the deployment of all of our various services. All right, so to set up the database, again, remember that right now we're using our local SQLite 3 database. Now, I want to use Postgres that is hosted in the cloud, right? We actually want a legitimate database. So we need to go here to databases in settings of our course platform and change this to be the information that will be provided to us from Linode/Akamai. Now, how do we do that? Well, first we need to change the engine to use the Postgres engine. So it'll be django.db.backends dot, and this is going to be Postgres SQL like that. We might as well just quit our server while we do this because some things are going to be changing. And let's see here. I think that's how you spell it. Postgres SQL. Okay. Now for the name, this is going to be Postgres. This is actually the name of the default database. We're then going to have a user. Now the user is going to be Linode or actually not Linode. It's going to be Lin and then Postgres. Let's make sure we have our comma here. We're going to have a password. Now this is going to be different for all of us, so we'll fill that in 1 second. We're then going to have a host. Okay, again, that's going to be different. And then we're going to have a port. Now this will be a string as well, and the port is always going to be 5432, which is the default port for connecting to a Postgres SQL database. Now that we have that, we're going to go back to our servers. Okay, so we're going to go to Linode. We're going to go to databases. I'm going to go to my Django database, and notice this is provisioned. And now I'm going to get my password and my host. So I'm going to copy my host and put that here. And then I'm going to copy my password, and I'm going to put that in. Now, I'm not going to share with you the password, so this will be the last time I kind of show you the settings file unless there's any other changes that we need. Anyways, I'm going to copy this in. Obviously, don't leak it. Don't share it with anyone else. And then I will show you one last step we need to actually get this functioning. All right, so I copied my password in. Now, remember that we actually need to whitelist the IP address of anything that's going to access this database. So what we'll need to do is find our IP address. We're going to go to Google, and we're going to type in, what is my IP? We are then going to click on Manage Access Controls, and we're going to add that IP address here. So I'm going to add that in and then save. Obviously, if you guys add your own IP address, I don't want to leak mine. All right, so I added my IP address. Now what we'll need to do is we'll actually need to run the migration commands so that we take our database and we change this over to the MySQL connected database. So I'm going to clear the screen here. I'm going to go Python manage.py make migrations. Okay, no changes detected, that's fine. And then I'm going to say Python manage.py and then migrate. And you should see that it's actually going to run all of these migrations, taking a little bit longer this time because it's connected to a remote database. So now what we can do is actually delete this local db.sqlite database if we'd like to do that. And now everything should be connected to that remote database that is running in the cloud. If we want to test this, we can go Python manage.py run server. And we can just make a new account and make sure that our connection is set up. And now we should be using that remote, what do you call it here? Database. So let's go to register. Let's go with Tim1, tim@gmail.com. Let's set our password, click on register. Okay, so there you go. It's registered. We're now signed in. If I log out and I change this to Tim1, and I log in, you can see that we log in. Now notice it takes ever so slightly longer because again, we're connected to a network resource now, not that local database, which I actually deleted. So we now have our database hooked up. We have authentication done, which in my opinion, is the hard part. Lastly, we want to take this code and we want to actually start storing this in a Git repository, which we're going to have hosted in our GitLab server. So we can close this now. We can stop running because the last step here is going to be essentially to save all of this work in GitLab. So we're going to go back to our Linode servers here. Going to go to Linode, and what we're going to do is just configure GitLab. Now, the way that GitLab works is it essentially acts like GitHub, but it's self-hosted. That means we don't have to rely on GitHub or Microsoft. We have our own server, which is storing the Git repository for us and gives us a lot more controls, access, speed, etc., whatever you want to think of, right? Now, what we need to do, though, is configure this. So you'll notice that if I take my IP address here and I paste this into my browser, it will actually bring us to this GitLab page where we can sign in. However, before we can do any operations, we need to sign in as the root GitLab user, and we need to get the password by SSHing into the GitLab server. So this is the only time we need to SSH, but we're going to go here. We're going to copy this command, okay, SSH root at blah, blah, blah. We're now going to go to CMD here, and we're going to run this command. So we're going to type yes. For the root password, we're going to type in the password we set when we provision this server. Okay, so now I'm signed in. Now that I'm signed in, what I'm able to do is run a specific command, which I'm going to show you in 1 second, which will actually print out what the root password is for our GitLab user. Once we have the root password, we can change it, and then we can actually set up other accounts and allow other people access to our server. So to do this, we're going to type cat, and it's going to be /etc/GitLab, and then /initial_root_password. Okay, now it's going to give us this root password. So we're going to take this password and we're going to copy that and we're going to use that to sign in. Okay, so copy that and then go here and we're going to type root and we're going to paste in the password and go sign in. Now that's actually going to bring us to this URL right here. Now I can go ahead and save that. And this is where we can create a new repository. We can push code. We can do everything we need to. But that root password is not something I'm going to be able to remember. So I need to change that password, or I need to give myself access to create another account here on GitLab. We're going to press this button. We're going to press on administrator. We are then going to go to this little thing that says view users in admin area. It's going to bring us to this users tab. We're going to click on users, and now we can make a new user that we can sign in as. Now, this is the administrator one. What we could do is we could change the password here, right? So we can change this to something that we're going to remember. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Just so I'm going to be able to sign in as admin, which has the username root. Let's go ahead and save that. Okay, you need to sign in before continuing. That's fine. So let's sign in. Okay, so now it's going to be the new password, I guess. That's kind of weird how it does that. Okay, so now we're signed in with the new password. So let's update that. But now if we want, right, we go to users and we can make a new user. So if I go to new user, you can do name, username, email, and you can make a user for someone else to sign in as, so they can have access to your GitLab kind of account, projects. There's a bunch of stuff to set up here, right? I won't go through all the settings of GitLab, but you can look through it and you'll see that there's a lot more stuff than regular GitHub. Now though, what we'll do since we've changed the password is we'll just go back to the main area here. So how do I get back to that? What would this be? Okay, here, projects, and we're going to create a project. So for the project, we're going to make a blank project. We'll give it a name. This will be my Django site. Okay. We'll make it private. I will not initialize it. And we need to pick a group. Okay. For the group, we'll put it under root. Go ahead and click on create project here. And now I'm going to show you how we push our code to this. So it gives you actually all of the instructions that you need. We're inside of course platform. So we're going to make a new repo. We're going to type git init. Now we'll go with -- initial - branch is equal to main. Okay, so we initialize the new Git repository with the main branch rather than master. We're now going to copy this command right here. So let's grab that and paste that in to add the origin. We're then going to say git add dot and then git commit -m first commit. Okay, so now we've committed all of our code. Keep in mind that we do have some sensitive data in our code, so you want to be careful who you're giving access to the repository. You also could put this in environment variables, but we don't need to get that complex just yet. And then we're going to copy this push command here, and we're going to push our code to the main branch on GitLab. Notice it's going to ask me for my credentials. So I'm going to use the account that I just changed the password for. Obviously, you could use a different account as well. Okay, so now we've pushed to main. So now if I refresh here, you should see that we have a repository appearing, and we have our Django site. So now this is on GitLab, and we can actually start setting up some automatic pipelines to deploy this automatically when we are ready for that step, which will be in the last video. Thanks very much for sticking around through all of video 1. If you've made it to this point, you're well on your way to getting this SaaS application done. In the next video, we're going to handle some of the backend stuff related to storing and creating different courses, and then giving users access to those courses based on their subscription level. I'll also show you how we set up that Stripe integration so users can actually purchase courses, and we can then give them access to them and they can view them from our site. Anyways, that was it for video 1. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and check out video number 2.